Kevin Griffin. Can you see if he is present via virtual? Does that help? No?
I just started like 2 seconds ago, so.
Okay. Tronaya Hankton. Dominique Johnson, present. Terrell Kent.
Present.
Natalie Laborde. Ivy Mathis.
Present.
Otha Curtis Nelson.
I'm present on behalf of Mr. Nelson.
Okay. Kelly Peterson. Richard Pittman. Kim Robinson.
Here.
Ashley Sias.
Present.
Did I pronounce your last name right? Perfect. We'll begin our agenda with the first presentation from Dr. Shayla Polk.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Ooh, y'all sound a little dull. Good morning.
Good morning, Dr. Polk.
Thank you. I'm Dr. Polk. I'm with the Office of the Governor, Department of Drug Policy. And I've been asked today to speak on how to build strong families when it comes to children who are incarcerated. So I just did a little bit of research. My background is in social work, so this is right up my alley, so to speak. And all of my research is trauma related, so I'm very trauma informed. So this was a good topic, and I hope that you guys gain some additional knowledge from it. I did make some handouts, and I did put them on the table in the back, so feel free to grab those. It's basically a summary of the presentation. And so I'll go ahead and get started. So I want to talk about building the foundation. The first thing I want to look at is that children and families who deal with parental incarceration, they always need extra support, especially if they are involved with child welfare. So it's very, very important that they have all the supportive measures in place that need to help them thrive, to help them succeed, to help them be resilient. Children who are separated from their parents due to incarceration often experience a variety of negative outcomes. So we know that there are a lot of risk factors involved, and we'll go through those in a minute. And then for a parent who is incarcerated, remaining fully involved in the children's lives can be very difficult. The system makes that difficult. And just a lot of outliers and factors also make that very difficult. And then caregivers, they are there to help improve the outcomes through supportive measures for the child or the children. And so research does suggest that the strength or weaknesses of the parent-child bond and the quality of the child and family social support system does play a significant role in the child's ability to overcome challenges and succeed in life. However, we do know if the parent is incarcerated and they don't have that support or that bond with their child, then there is a likelihood that that child could end up in a system later on down the line. So looking at risk factors, before I go into these, I want to say that the research does suggest that children with parents who have experienced imprisonment are more likely to end up in the criminal justice system. However, it's important to note that it's not that because the parents are incarcerated, it is due to other risk factors. So some of that is the grief that the children have experienced. They may not have been through therapy. They might not have had a good support system. They might be going from home to home. So all of those risk factors lead to the child being in situations where they might end up in a criminal justice system, not necessarily because the parent was in the criminal justice system or in prison. And so looking at some of these risk factors, we know pretty much is spoken of everywhere right now, ACEs. So we know that, you know, the adverse childhood experiences do exist and that they do significantly increase the likelihood of a long-term negative behavioral and or physical health outcomes. So children whose parents are incarcerated already have some ACEs, right? And then we have found that having had a parent incarcerated does increase the risk for problem behaviors. So quick example, I used to do behavior therapy in the school system. I had a kid on my caseload. I want to say about 10 years old at the time. And we had been making some progress. You know, dad was involved, mom not so much. And because mom had a drug problem. So, but dad was involved. So dad showed up to meetings, dad was working with me. And then he ended up with grandmother. But then the behaviors like increased. I mean, there was no other way to say it but wilding out. Like it was insane, like how we went from having some behavior control to no control. And so I'm trying to figure out what's going on, but no one had revealed to me that dad, who he had been with from the time he was 6, had went to prison. And so all the behavior, so the school wasn't informed. I, as the therapist at the time, wasn't informed. So no one that was working with this child was informed. So we did see the increase in behavior, but I could not work with him until I knew that. So once I knew that, then I can work with the child on processing that information, you know, understanding, you know, that was the time frame that dad got back, was able to get back. So when we know all the pieces of the, or have all the pieces of the puzzles, we can help the child become resilient. So when I had all of that, then I was able to help the student, you know, reduce the behavior and understand, you know, how to regulate his emotions around the fact that dad had went to prison. I will say this, I ended up working with this student for 3 years. He turned out to be one of my best students. I do often wonder what he's doing now. And then dad did come home at about a year later, and, you know, we were able to kind of get back, settle in, and work with him from there. So that's just an example how we don't know what's going on in the child's life. We don't know what's going on in the environment due to the fact that the parent might have, okay, thank you. Due to the parent being incarcerated, it's important to just make sure we have all communication open, not only with the child, but if possible with the parent as well. Let's see. So that's just some of the risk factors. We talking about behavioral. We could talk. Children do experience trauma, like I said. You know, sometimes that trauma looks like anxiety. It's important to know what that looks like because it looks different from individual to individual. And so by knowing what it is, then we can work with them to put protective factors in place for them to live successful lives. This one was, I wanted to note about the fathers because, again, it brought up what I saw in the young kid that I was working with. So children who are living with their fathers before they are incarcerated are more likely to develop behavioral problems. So acting out or breaking rules, attention difficulties, such as impulsivity or daydreaming, are highly, like it's at a higher rate in children who live with their fathers and then their father's incarcerated. So that's a bit of information. I thought that was very important to just add in there. All right, so speaking of caregivers, a caregiver must also have their own support system. I think it's important that they are doing everything that they need for themselves, especially because there are added stressors, there's anxiety and all of those things involved. So ensuring supportive and a caring community is very, very important. Children need adults who will listen and help them communicate their feelings. But if you don't know how to articulate your feelings, how are you going to help someone else articulate their feelings? So the adults who have been closest to the situation often need help themselves before they are able to provide the support that is needed for the children that they are taking care of. So helping them find resources is very important. Helping them build support systems is very important. It increases the presence of protective factors. And then it enhances the sense of nurturing and attachment between the parent and the child. If possible, I always say, if it is possible to have the parent-child relationship, even though the parent is incarcerated, keep that communication open, keep those relationships very, 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 very important on the part of the caregiver if it is possible to do so. It will have a positive impact on children's social and emotional competence. And then protective factors. The key protective factor I want to talk about is fostering positive relationships, positive attachment, caring adults, being able to build competence through skills and activities, utilizing therapy or wraparound services, effective mental and behavioral health interventions, all evidence-based, increasing the child's feelings of safety, managing emotions when faced with triggers, developing a positive view of themselves, all give that child a greater sense of control over their own life because they already feel like they have lost control. And we know that when children feel that they lose control, we will see behavioral problems. There's just no way around it because they're trying to control something, or we will see attention-seeking behaviors. And whether it's positive or negative, they're going to get the attention somehow. And 9 times out of 10, it's going to be negative attention that they're seeking. So we want to make sure we're highlighting everything positive so that they know that we can get the attention, but we get more attention when we're positive behavior. All right, so taking that into perspective, I'm all about resilience and strength perspectives. That's the 2 things that I've utilized when I was a therapist. So of course I had to throw this in here. Resilience framework, the family resilience framework. I'm only pulling 3 of the factors that I think are very important. One is make sure the children maintain some basic routines. Always keep communication open and then nurture those relationships. And so we'll go into that really quickly over the next few slides. Let's see. The reason why we want to talk about basic routines is because there's always some adjustment. So when the parent goes off or is incarcerated, there's an adjustment in routine. They might have to move with someone else. They might have to live in a different city. You don't know. So that means if they had a routine at, let's say, going to bed at 8:30 p.m., then you will want to keep that routine at 8:30 p.m. And not switch it to 7 or 10 or whatever. Keeping communication open with the child. I'm going to go a little bit deeper into that in a minute. And then in doing that, you're also nurturing the relationship because when you build rapport, they're more likely to be more open with you regarding how they're feeling and their thoughts and their actions. So being an anchor of support, children of incarcerated parents will most certainly ask hard questions. So you have to be prepared for that. They will experience difficulty. Research says they're more likely to be discriminated against or bullied. And a child's parent or guardian or any other caregiver, sometimes they don't want to answer those questions, but it's important to answer the questions as best as you can, whatever questions that they have, and make sure that they're developmentally appropriate. The reason being is it promotes resilience and it also keeps the line of communication open, which is very, very important. And then this is just a little bit of what that might look like. So children, they're gonna ask the hard questions. We know that. We have to talk to them. We have to pick a good time to talk to them. We don't want to talk to them when they're highly upset or agitated. We want to make sure they're calm. And then there's an opening for that discussion. You want to listen well. It is important to understand how the child views the situation. Get their thoughts on it. What is confusing them? What is troubling them? And then know that sometimes it's okay to say, I don't know, because sometimes we just don't know. And so again, saying I don't know is the correct form of communication when you really don't know. Let's not just make up something to try and make the child feel okay. It's okay for them to know that you just don't know. This is an acronym, CARES. You may have heard of it before, but it's just a reminder to create a safe environment for the child to talk freely, acknowledge and validate the child's concerns, reassure the child that they are not alone, encourage active play and skill building, and share honest and age-appropriate information with the child. Prioritizing stability, very, very important. Children often have to cope with big losses when a parent is in prison, so they may lose a caregiver, their home, their school, their friends, all those things that matter to them the most. And so caregivers can help ease the trauma by trying to keep the child's situation as stable as possible, setting up routines, as I mentioned before, as much as possible, stagger changes so that the child doesn't feel as if they have lost everything at once. So just being conscious and making those decisions when we know that there's a change. Encouraging active skill building. That looks like children, helping them with their coping skills. Let's see, whenever possible, and also helping them emotionally regulate. involves supportive adults. Sometimes we cannot do it alone, so making sure that they also have a support system, again, and you have a support system, it comes in handy because sometimes you just have to send them over to somebody else. You need a break. It's very, sometimes we take on everything and everybody and we forget about ourselves, but you can't help them if you don't have your own support system. And then consider helping the child connect with their incarcerated parent. So as much as possible, like I said earlier, it's important that they keep those relationships with their parents. It is common that the caregiver will feel overwhelmed with the new responsibilities. And it's also important that, you understand that, yes, I have these responsibilities, but that parent still also has responsibilities. And so ensuring that as much as you can, that there's a lot of communication between the parent and the child, or the children and their parents. Supportive adults can also be family members, teachers, coaches, neighbors, and members of their religion. I know that when I've had the situation with my kid, well, not my kid, but I could consider him my kid. But when I had the situation with the father that was incarcerated and the child I was working with, we kept the lines of communication open through the grandmother. So I had signed some forms where she talked to the father, she could come back and share that information with me. So I was able to talk with the young kid, with the little boy, about his dad. Like, we all had these communication flowing until he got out of jail. And then look into other programs that can help. Make sure everyone's on the same page, because the child needs structure. I'm throwing this in because I just thought about it, but it's important that the therapist, the school system, the grandparents, whoever's working with that child, we all have a meeting. We would always have a meeting and make sure that they're all on the same page. Because whatever they're doing here, we want them to be doing there. So whatever's happening at home, I want to ensure that he or she is able to do it in the school. And that helps, again, help build the resiliency. So if I know that they're having trouble with sleeping at night, then the teacher needs to know that they're having trouble sleeping at night, right? The administration needs to know, anybody, the therapist. Sometimes they're working with 2 or 3 different types of therapists that are billing for different things. So even though you can't give all this information per ethics, you can say what you're working on. So if the child is having trouble sleeping at night, we might be talking about regulating a bedtime routine. Everyone needs to know that that child is in the stage of regulating a bedtime routine, because then if the teacher sees them sleeping in class, we could say, oh, but that might be why he can't sleep at night. He's sleeping during class. So different things like that, because sometimes they don't want to go to sleep at night. Based off the fact that they've just experienced something that's very traumatic, right? And so it's important that we look into everyone and everything that can help that child become resilient. And that's pretty much it. And if you look at my handout, I do have some resources on there. I don't have them listed on here, but there are resources for children that are all age appropriate. So I did put QR codes. One is specifically for elementary children, then I have one for youth, and then one for teenagers, and one for caregivers. And each one of those links have links to other valuable information that is very, very important. So thank you.
Does anybody have any questions? Dr. Polk, I do have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Are you open to meeting with girls directly from Louisiana who may have a different perspective about some of the content in your report?
I have no problem at all.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Mrs. Keller.
Hello, my name is Angelique Keller. I am with the Office of Juvenile Justice. I am currently the statewide program manager for diversity, equity, and inclusion. And as part of that role, I am responsible for making sure that the youth in our custody are receiving appropriate and equitable services when they're placed in custody. Initially, I was asked to present on the relationship between the high school dropout rate and juvenile incarceration. However, our agency does not keep that data because either that happens before they enter our custody or potentially after they leave our custody. But we sort of decided on basically a report out on the status of the state of our education in our agency. The Office of Juvenile Justice has schools at all of its secure facilities, and they include Riverside Alternative High, which is the school at the Bridge City Center for Youth in Bridge City. Southside Alternative High School is located at the Swanson Center for Youth in Monroe. Pine Hill Alternative High School at the Swanson Center for Youth in Columbia, and Central Southwest Alternative at Acadiana Center for Youth in Bunkie, Louisiana. And from May 2023 to present, the graduation rate for youth in OJJ's custody and OJJ schools increased by 34%, with 32 youth graduating over that period of time. 21 received their high school diploma and 11 received their high set, which is the diploma equivalency. 10 youth have received their OSHA certifications. And in addition to that, OJJ's school performance scores, which were recently released, revealed growth at all of its schools. In November, Louisiana Department of Education released the official 2022 to 2023 school year school and district performance scores. OJJ's alternative school district significantly increased in 2 of the 3 schools. The Pine Hill Alternative and Southside Alternative schools are grouped together. So that's the one in Monroe and Columbia. So their grades are grouped together. Riverside Alternative at Bridge City earned a B letter grade, and then the Southside Pine Hill Alternatives earned a C. Riverside Alternative at Bridge City actually grew 15.6 points from a C last year to a B this year. And then the schools at Columbia and Monroe grew 11.2 points from a D last year to a C this year. The Central Southwest at Bunkie, it grew 2.2 points, even though we currently still have an F at that school. OJJ's education department has introduced a lot of new initiatives, including mentor teachers, content leaders, dual enrollment at Bossier Community College and Fletcher Community College, a workforce development collaboration, in addition to many other initiatives. Our current instructional programs include Edgenuity, Jobs for America's Graduates, or JAG, at the Bridge City Center for Youth and the Southside schools. Social emotional learning, PBIS, Positive Behavior Intervention supports Achieve 3000 intervention program, a Technomedia online literacy program for internet core competency certification, Career Safe OSHA 10 and OSHA 30. I'm not sure if I'm saying this correctly, ICEV industry-based certifications. We have Quest for Success, basic life skills, CPR certifications, Lift Learning, Life Skills Reimagined, Essential Ed for TAPE and High Set Academies, among many others. In addition, our Swanson Center for Youth actually has a new campus being built, which will be completed in the spring of 2024, and that campus consists of a new school as well.
So what I do like is that you guys are now starting these mentor teacher programs. Can you talk more about that?
I do not have the information on that specifically. I can get that information and report out on that at the next meeting if you'd like. If there are any other programs you'd like me to go into more detail about, let me know.
What I do see a lot in New Orleans is a lot of young Black men are athletes, and because they cannot support the athletic goals or dreams, then they generally end up becoming incarcerated. I know my son, one of his really good, they played hardball together. The guy was a really good quarterback. And we looked on Instagram one day and realized not only did he have a child, but the child is now incarcerated. I mean, the kid is incarcerated, and he's only 16. But my thinking is he was sentenced to 5 years. So he's going to serve his 5 years. But what if they still have dreams and desires, or at least becoming student athletes at some time through community college, or even becoming physical fitness? So what if we work with you all to try to introduce physical fitness programs to the youth that are incarcerated? Because what I do realize is in Louisiana, a lot of our children are talented athletically. And more than anything, I think if we introduce new trades to them
Mhm.
and put people who are directly impacted that have overcome the same obstacles doing those same trades. I think that would be like more eye-catching, even for the young ladies, cosmetologists. There are tons of cosmetologists who are formerly incarcerated or directly impacted. I know a lot of girls in our program at Daughters Without Incarceration have upfront told me, I don't want to go to college. And so now our next steps are, we don't have anything in place once the girls turn 18. I mean, we have someone to help get them through college. We teach them youth leadership, but what's next? And so what I realized is since we don't have anything in place, we kind of lose them. And it's challenging for them because I have one girl, she just finished her first semester at Jackson State. And she told me, she said, you have been a part of my life since I was 14. And when I go to college, you just stop and think that's okay. So, like, would like for us as a council to work collaboratively together to try to see what resources we can have in place after they make 18 or after they're home from college and what their career path looks like, because a lot of them don't want to go and work at a fast food restaurant. Thank you for your input.
Yeah. Well, I did want to add to, just to follow up what you were saying. We did recently receive our girls back into our physical custody. They were at the Ware Center for Youth, and that was a contract facility for us. And within the past 2 months, we have received them back into our custody, as far as actually operating the secure facility that they're housed in. And so I think we have about 16 or 17 girls at this time. So the programming is still being developed for that. So I definitely will pass that information along, because that's something new that we're now doing programming for the girls.
And I'm sorry to cut you off. I have some youth that are openly like willing to express themselves, and actually they can sit and meet with you to help you cultivate that program.
Okay, that'd be great. The other thing I wanted to note was that I definitely think that's a good idea. We really do need to beef up the physical fitness with our youth. Prior to COVID, there was a lot more physical fitness. We had our flag football teams. We had our basketball teams at the different facilities. And throughout the year, they would actually play against each other. That actually has been brought back, I think, for the first time since COVID. And so we recently did have flag football games between the kids at some of the facilities. But that could definitely be beefed up, and having mentors come in and assist us with that, because right now our juvenile justice specialists are operating in all those dual roles, because right now they're volunteering to coach those different teams and lead those teams in addition to what they're already doing. So we could definitely use the
And so we work with an organization that's led by Mac Terrence in New Orleans. It's called Cultivating Youth. He is already entering into the YJJC doing physical fitness. The struggle is trying to find funding for he and his staff to support their program completely. So part-time, I think you go maybe once a week? Twice a week. But the impact that it has on the students that he serves. And so I'm thinking about it like this. If those children were able to participate in the sports that they love prior to their incarceration, just think about how, like, sports make people happy. So I do think that if we can work together to maybe find funding and maybe collaborate on a grant to help bring sports and physical fitness back into the institutions, I think that would be so. I think that would be amazing.
Well, contact me, get in touch with me, and I will connect everybody to administration, and then we can have those discussions.
Okay. Does anybody else have any other questions?
I'm just a public person, but doesn't the office have an office on this?
I did not know that.
Yeah, I think they do.
Does anyone know who's over it? Governor's Office of Physical Fitness. Thank you for that. So I do have some exciting upcoming events that I would like to share with you all. So we do know last year that this council released its report. And we kind of put it together gracefully at the last minute, and I am so appreciative of everyone for helping us do that. We have to release another report this year. I'm sorry, in 24. In 24. But I have an idea, and I would like you all's input on how we can make this work. So in May of this year, Daughters Beyond Incarceration passed a resolution that would allow incarcerated parents to attend their children's graduation virtually. And even now, when I sit and think about that, I'm thinking about I needed that when I was in high school and in college. But to think about the percentage of children that are impacted by their parents' incarceration that drop out of school because their parent won't be at their graduation, and how powerful this resolution will be. So I would like for all of our institutions to come together to try to recruit children who are graduating and would like to have their incarcerated parents at their graduation. With doing so, the data that we need to collect for our report can be the driving force of this. So when a child comes in and wants to register for their incarcerated parents to attend their graduation, the data that we need to collect for our report can be one of the incoming forms that the child signs. Whatever institution you represent, that institution collects that data, brings the data back to the council so we can put it together for our report. For example, Daughters Beyond Incarceration is hosting its policy program. The application deadline is December 18th. We select 5 girls that have a parent in prison. We pay those girls $3,000 from January to June. They will learn the criminal justice process, the legislative process, voting rights, and know your rights. Those 5 girls will help us collectively decide what bills we'll pass and what resolutions we'll work on. For example, we're working on a parenting from prison campaign, which is what Dr. Polk talked about in some of her notes. But we're working to support incarcerated parents by helping them parent from prison. One of those outlets includes having formerly incarcerated persons meet with the current incarcerated person to help them create equitable engagement conversations. The thing that I had to realize was that not everybody that's in prison is like my dad. My dad is the jailhouse attorney, but not everybody is able to express himself the way my dad is. So we send in formerly incarcerated people to help them know what's going on in the streets and how their children communicate, and put the two together so that when they communicate, it's more equitable, and it also encourages the child to put forth their best foot academically so that the parent can be at the graduation. Um, we work with we're working to partner with schools so that I need to connect with the person who's going to be representing us from the Department of Education, so that the parents, a part of the campaign, can we can work to schedule parent-teacher conferences with the incarcerated parent. One of the girls in my program, her dad called as her mom was dropping her off at school, and the dad got a chance to talk to the teacher. The teacher was excited, the child was excited, and the dad felt he felt needed. One of the hardest things that my dad has told me was that when he went to prison, he felt like his position in my life was removed. So having that parent included on conversations about report card conferences, even where I would choose to select my scholarship for signing day, all of that was important for him because his voice felt heard. So what the plan is to partner with schools. Instead, we have these 5 girls who were selected as a part of our policy program. They are also graduating seniors. This is the list of their incarcerated dads. You'll be working with 2 formerly incarcerated people from our community who's going to help us to increase the engagement between not only the child and the parent, but the teacher as well as DCFS, any of the institutions. And I hope that you guys would help us to get on board with that. So I know I just said a lot. I will also have my assistant type up some notes for us, but I feel like it is a good idea to kind of help parents parent from prison, but also reduce the percentage of children that are dropping out of school and entering our criminal justice system. It's a lot, huh?
I love it. That's thinking outside the box. Do we have anyone from the Department of Education here?
She left, it was Dr. Kelly Peterson.
Oh, okay.
So I need to reach out to the Department of Education to see who else they can appoint. But that's the goal. The next thing that we need to discuss, if anybody else has any questions, I think Renee looked like she has something to say.
No.
We need to talk about reappointments. As you can see, we have a lot of empty seats. A lot of people are supposed to roll off. So once we get enough members to have a quorum, then we need to vote and create some bylaws and do all of that again. So which will probably be at our January meeting. Does any other organizations want to talk about any upcoming events that they have? I know we getting ready for Christmas, so there are a lot of toy drives and stuff that's happening.
I have a question.
Yes.
Is there any data on the number of incarcerated persons with children? Is Department of Corrections?
Yes. So if you check out our report, I think I have a copy here. It's got some notes on it. But our report, I think it is, well, it was on the governor's website. I'm not sure with the new transition what's happening. If you give me your email, I can send it to you. But in our report, we did receive some data from Natalie Laborde in the Department of Corrections that showed the percentage of incarcerated people accounted for as having children. Now, we do know there's 94,000 children that have reported as having a parent incarcerated. But what we do not know and I'm sorry?
94,000 children.
NOLA.com for the state of Louisiana. And I can also send you that information because it's also in the report. But that's as far as we know, like since we started this council, we've struggled, and even when we did we were compiling the data from our first report, we struggled with finding data for that number.
I think I would just like to piggyback on that. It's really hard in the school system. I don't know if it's, would it be in charter schools and the information is private, it's taboo, a kid don't want to say it, they're embarrassed that that the parent is incarcerated, because again, I'm on this board because I was a child of a former incarcerated parent. I did okay, I had to navigate that, but it's really hard on a kid because of what they're being, taught. So sometimes the teacher don't even know. Again, I know it's private, but if they be more open, and transparent about these kids, boys and girls, can get the help. But again, like she said, on the education side, that's a hard institution to navigate with all the different systems that they have, with the charter school. Because even like Dominique said, we had a campaign last year in October of 2022, which was pretty good, but it was really hard. The surveys, that we had to get, because the child can't fill it out, the caregiver has to fill it out. It's just a lot. So with the education department, it's really neat on that side, for the continuing needs for this kid.
And so what I think, and hopefully you continue to come to the meetings, I'm hoping that we all can work together to collect the data so that we can get more defined data, because it isn't specific, it isn't often shared, even though I'm sure it's public information, but it's not often shared widespread.
And so that was going to be my point. As somebody that works in the education system, there has to be a way, even with the charter schools and everything, there's specific data that has to be collected that's tied to the funding that the schools get from both state and federal government. As far as like demographic information, we have to kind of stay on the Department of Education or whoever we get on this council to be able to tie that in, because there's such a big gap in that data.
Yeah.
There's such a big gap in that data, and we'll never be able to reach the kids that we really need to reach without that information.
And so I wonder if DCFS, do you all collect that data?
Which data? I was about to make an announcement, but what
Go
are
ahead.
you talking
Oh,
about?
go ahead.
No, I want to continue that.
So do you all collect data, in any shape, form, or fashion about children that are impacted by incarceration?
Not on the family support side, but if they may be child welfare involved, there could be some data there.
Okay.
Yes, there
That
is.
is. So,
And I was gonna say that I just left Louisiana CASA. The CASA program is CASA volunteers work with directly with children that are in foster care or in child welfare involved. A focus of the state association has been training on working with children and incarcerated parents. There's a fabulous expert, Dr. Landra at University of Arkansas, has done her doctoral work on working with children and incarcerated parents, and she was a speaker at one of the conferences recently. But it's been a focus of that association. Those are not caretakers per se, but they are advocates for the children who are in foster care, and so they have data on the number of children that they work with.
Okay.
And I believe that the child welfare, that division of PCFS has that data too. I could be wrong about that, I just know about it.
Okay, thank you.
I can check on that data on the child welfare side. That's really not my house, so I don't know it right off the, but I can check with my counterpart on that side of that.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
But I would just point out that it seems to me that the Department of Corrections should collect that data from the incarcerated adults, than putting that burden on children to self-identify or even,
I
PCFS.
agree, and that has been my biggest obstacle yet.
What's the barrier?
Sorry.
I'm just curious on what is being said.
Hey Dominique, I'm busy, I'll get back with you.
Oh, okay.
Hey Dominique, I'm swamped, I'll get back with you. Yeah. So I have been working with some state representatives and legislators to try to get through them a little differently. But yeah, so hopefully Natalie will start attending the meetings or have a representative to come so that we can connect with her or her staff in person. It's been a struggle. So far, oh, you said that you all had anything.
Yes, I was about to. There's a ribbon cutting in New Orleans. It is it's with the East New Orleans Public Libraries.
Mhm.
They're opening a We Play Center.
Yep.
And so it's it's a collaboration. So DCFS does some contracting with Training Grounds to help open that center. And it's to create supportive learning environments with caregivers and educators to provide children with quality experiences that promote healthy brain development, appropriate adult-child interactions, and positive social emotional skills. So that ribbon cutting is tomorrow. Yeah, just wanted to tell the folks.
I love Melanie at Training Grounds. That's an amazing thing. My son is functionally autistic, and so she helped me navigate the spaces with him, and she does amazing work. So congratulations to you for partnering with them.
Where is it again?
This one is at the East New Orleans Regional Library, 5641 Reed Boulevard.
We also have a ribbon cutting ceremony this evening at 6 p.m. for Daughters Beyond Incarceration for our new space. Our after-school program ended a month ago, and we're introducing and inviting everybody to come see our new space. It's at 2129 Oretha Castle, Haley. If anyone is interested, I'll send you guys a flyer.
That's Baton Rouge?
That's in New Orleans. That's in New Orleans.
I have fun, okay?
Awesome. So yeah, I'm excited about that. Wade, do you know if we have any public comments?
Yeah, as I said.
Okay. So our next steps, January meeting, the meeting is generally the second Thursday of every month. I think that's closer to the beginning of the year, so I'll send out maybe some feelers to see if everyone is available, but our next steps are for January meeting to discuss voting, bylaws, and reappointments. Does anyone have any comments or concerns about that?
Would you like me to ask the people on it to see?
Yes. And if anyone has any emails that they'd like to add to people to actually come, or maybe see if they want to come, just shoot me an email and I'll send them an invite to our next meeting. And if there are not any more questions, we would like to end the meeting adjourned.
You said adjourn. Your turn.